Yo, what up everybody, it's Tuna. In this video, I wanted to showcase the splitting steel build that I've been putting together for the past few days. And in general, I just wanted to kind of show off the build, what it's capable of, and just how strong it is really. Now, the build is, of course, very, very expensive. It uses mage blood, as well as some other pretty insane items. So yeah, just as a disclaimer, it's pretty damn expensive. But I know a lot of people have a ton of currency this league from, all the crazy farming that we have in T17s and all that sort of stuff. And maybe some of you guys are looking for a build that does a ton of damage, but is also really tanky and just feels really smooth to play. And also on top of that has a very high scaling potential. I think the Necropolis League is a great league to be playing builds that use defense affixes on their gear, because usually it's really hard to actually get these defensive affixes to roll at the triple T1. But because of Necropolis, it's super, super easy. Aside from the fact that, of course, you have to deal with the Necropolis mechanic. But if you are, too lazy to craft and all that kind of stuff, there's people crafting for these things. As I'm be putting out some crafting guides as well as layouts for people to follow. But yeah, basically the way that this build works is you're using the ephemeral edge. You're getting a ton of added lightning damage for 20% of your maximum energy shield. So I am now currently at 16,175 energy shield. So if I was to go 16,175 and you multiply that by 0.2, that means that I am getting an extra 3,223 flat lightning damage to attacks, and that's going to be added onto my weapon. So that's a lot of flat lightning damage that we are getting from basically using this weapon here. And so yeah, it's pretty damn insane, on top of it giving us a lot of increased energy shield. Now that is really, really good, but the downside of this is, of course, it has like very low attack speed. But one thing that we want to do is we want to absolutely get Resolute Technique on the weapon, because Resolute Technique is going to make sure that we do not have to worry about accuracy whatsoever. But another really nice little bit of synergy is the fact that I have 1 life since I am Chaos Inoculation, meaning I don't have to worry too much about Chaos damage at all. And because I have 1 life, I can freely spec into Precise Technique, getting us 40% more damage. We don't actually go into critical strike for this build. So again, also we are doing non-crit damage, meaning Voices of the Storm is just insane because it gives our lightning damage with non-crits lucky. What lucky means is that it's going to roll twice and it's going to choose the higher value of the two. And since lightning damage has a very high variance, and generally it has low lows as well as high highs, this is just a crazy, crazy multiplier for the build. It just gives you a ton of damage. So if I was to actually go into Path of Building, yeah, it is going to give me a total of 34% more damage for basically just that modifier there, the lucky. So yeah, it's a damn insane amulet for how cheap it is, especially for this build. And of course, you can look for corruptions on that. But that is the very basic mechanics of the build. Of course, you are then using Splitting Steel, and Splitting Steel is going to be paired up with Nimbus. This doesn't really matter like how you aim Splitting Steel, because the majority of your damage is actually coming from the returning projectile and the splits that are going to be then exploding on top of your character and on top of the target that you're trying to shoot. So primarily what you're trying to do with this build is you are actually trying to position yourself in a way where you're like close to as inside of the boss as possible, to where you could just shotgun all of these projectiles onto him. And especially with the help of Sniper's Mark and a bunch of mark effect that we're getting on the tree, this is going to be so much damage in comparison to what is actually just being displayed in PoB, which is about 10 million, right? I'm just going to chuck in a Uber Eater right now, just to showcase some of the damage as well as tankiness. And yeah, talk you through maybe a little bit more things on how to position and how to fight the boss. So I will be using Smite. Now, you don't necessarily have to be using Smite, but it feels like if you're ever fighting a tanky single target, it's just basically free to tap him. Then we have Focus, which is going to be triggering our curses. So conductivity as well as elemental weakness will trigger once we click Focus, as well as increase attack speed while focused here on the gloves, which is really nice for just anytime you have like a target with a high HP and you just want to burst them down. And yeah, and that's basically it. We just put Ancestral Protector down and we hit the boss. I'll put the totem down, I'll smite him, focus, and we just smack him. And you can see that the damage is like when we're positioning ourselves inside of the boss, the damage is pretty damn insane. And here we can showcase a little bit of the tankiness. These tentacles, they really hurt. So I'll kind of like go and stand like, okay, wait, didn't actually get hit there, but I will wait for like the slam attack, for example, and you can see that like the damage, we're tanking a lot of damage. I'll wait for one of the big slams so that we can kind of showcase what that looks like. Also, since you are a trickster, suppressing damage, you will take basically no damage from these kinds of things like spells and that sort of stuff. And here, hopefully we can showcase the slam. It does nothing. We can tank so much damage with this character, it doesn't matter. And of course, having such a high HP pool is part of the reason, but also because we have very good ways to mitigate it. And I dropped an Ashes, yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'll go into another boss now to showcase a little bit more what that looks like. Okay, so I've set up a Shaper, so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like going up against another boss. And it's also kind of impressive with the way that it looks because you're just kind of able to tank all of the damage that it does. And again, like the setup, I'll just put my totem down, I will smack him with this, and we can just stand in like literally everything. You can see the slam, it doesn't matter, the balls, they don't matter, this chaos storm that he does also doesn't matter. You can kind of just stand around and take all the damage that he does. And yeah, once your recharge starts as well, like you will just keep recharging, like I don't even hardly have to attack, it's not like I'm dying. Now the slam is of course the scariest thing. But that slam right there is actually the highest physical damage hit in the game. And yeah, so now you guys have seen some of the single target and the tankiness. The map clear is actually pretty good as well because of the fact that like Splitting Steel is just doing all these AoE shatters everywhere. And yeah, it just feels like a really good build. And it's actually what I'm using right now to be farming T17s as well. And it's shaping up to be like, you know, I think it's like one of the strongest builds currently in the game, outside of maybe like some of the more degenerate like stacker type builds and that kind of stuff. But in general, it's a really fun build to be like investing your currency into, as it kind of feels like a bottomless pit for that sort of stuff. So if people are looking for a project build or something like that, I think this one is like probably it. Take like a massive amount of physical damage there from the Shaper. And yeah, it also, the cool thing is that it's not only just tanky, right, but it also does like a ton of damage. And it's kind of funny because like this league, this build was sort of nerfed in comparison to previous leagues, but this being an Uber and us like pretty much phasing him there in a couple seconds is just sort of insane. So I'll just finish this fight up and maybe talk a little bit about some more of the mechanics. Now, there are different ways to build your flasks, for example, going for tri-elemental flasks for max resistance. However, you know, for a more like speed farming type of variant that I've gone for, you know, I want an onslaught flask, I want a movement speed flask, and also having the extra quartz there is really nice to be able to capture suppression without many worries. And as well as the Stibnite to get us to as close to evasion cap as possible, because you know, without additionally having like blind and that kind of stuff, like getting the Stibnite is really nice. Now you can actually fit like one blind tattoo to be blinding enemies to get that evasion up the cap. There's no problem at all. But yeah, having the Stibnite is really nice too, and I also think this setup is just more quality of life for all Softcov players. But if you ever actually wanted to go for like a more tanky elemental damage mitigation type of variant, then of course you can grab Tri-Ele flasks instead. Now we're using the Anathema because Anathema basically sets our curses to our power charges, and meaning that we can grab an extra power charge here to have a total of 3 additional curses. So this is one baseline, which is going to be Sniper's Mark, and then we have like 3 additional which are going to be granted through Anathema, and we're going to be getting Conductivity as well as Elemental Weakness on there. So yeah, we're going to be getting a total of 3 power charges on there, as well as a Sniper's Mark. So that's really good to have. It's going to be like your highest damage possible, and because we are actually triggering those with focus, it's just overall just really nice to just have that on like tanky targets and that kind of stuff. And as I previously said, you know, like Nimbus and all of this energy shield gear, that is pretty damn easy to craft, and I will have actual crafting links for those too. But yeah, and then we use at series reflection. At series reflection is kind of insane shield because it grants us a ton of intelligence, and intelligence is going to be giving us a ton of energy shield as well. But on top of that, we are getting a bunch of evasion, some energy shield, some elemental resistances, as well as making you unaffected by curses, which is huge for T17s as well, and increases the effect of your curses too. Getting a good roll on this is kind of expensive, and I'm still actually looking to get one too. But in some cases also it's things that you can fish for corruptions on as well. Now, another piece of the build, which is insane, is the Adorned. The Adorned is the most broken jewel in the game, and there are certain breakpoints that you want to look for on this jewel. You want to either look for a minimum of 138 percent increased effect of jewels, or 146, and finally 150. So those are the breakpoints for Adorned. The reason why we use that is because we're stacking jewels like this, for example. Like, I get one jewel that gives me energy shield gain per enemy hit. So, you know, every time we hit an enemy, we're going to be getting a ton of energy shield, but also 8% energy shield on there. And then we can get additionally some corruptions or synth implicits. And the other jewels are going to look like this: increased attack speed, as well as, you know, some additional implicits and energy shield. Now, the nice thing is that the more energy shield we have, the more we scale our damage. And you can see that if I take this off, it's taking like 600 ES off of my character. They're pretty damn good, these jewels. And we're stacking about 5 of them, and you can get a 6th one once you get level 100. So for example, I'm level 97 right now, but when I get to level 100, I'll be able to get a 6th one there. And yeah, the Adorn just makes those jewels absolutely insane. It both scales your damage as well as your defense. And yeah, they're just like really, really strong. But now I'll go to a T17 to sort of show you guys what that looks like. And I'll just basically, yeah, I'll just chuck it in as it is. And that's going to be a T17 back to basics map. So with the full effective modifiers, with back to basics and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty much as hard as it gets for this content. We have 300% more scarabs, as well as 2000% increased crit. 300 is extra, boss is extra life. Yeah, the maps are pretty damn juicy, but the build actually deals with them pretty damn well, and you just basically like blast through them. Everything kind of dies. The only thing you might have to actually like pop your focus on or your smite is if you ever get like a very tanky rare or something like that. And these maps just pour out a ton of scarabs, and this is kind of like what I'm doing for money. Just farming a ton of scarabs as well as maps and that sort of stuff. And this build just deals very, 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 very well with them. And as you can see there, a Horned Scarab of Bloodlines, that is about like 0.7 of a div already. Although we are actually using that in our setup, so that's kind of just like sustain. But yeah, I mean, like the build actually clears pretty decently well for how tanky these monsters are. And it's killing the rares too pretty well. And the nice thing about it is that like I could technically even just go like AFK in these maps, and even if they have guaranteed crit as well as Fizz extra, it doesn't matter all that much because of just how tanky and how much recovery this build has. And that with Spellbreaker, my energy shield recharge doesn't basically stop if I've done it recently. If I've started recharging recently, in combination with the Wicked Ward, we basically just end up being like a recovery beast. We can just have monsters attacking us and not be worried about that. And we are also able to mitigate hit damage quite well because of the fact that we have a massive hit pool, as well as some of the mitigation that we have through endurance charges. And yeah, there's like a lot of layers involved, but in general the build is like kind of cracked. Now I'll just show you the showcase on the boss. Now this has boss HP as well as some other things, and the annoying thing about this boss is that like he actually like slows you down as well because of this debuff that you see on him. Okay, that is some big damage, boys. That is actually some big damage. Now, of course, T17s being the hardest content in the game, there might actually be still some things that not every build can tank. But I assume that maybe if you were like I don't know, potentially if you were like an armor stacker, you could tank that. I don't think that'd be a problem, but I think this build offers a really high level of quality of life. as well as a decent amount of clear for what it provides, and I think like it just does very, very well with all this kind of content. And I am very happy with the build. And we'll just make our way back to the boss to just kill him real quick. It's funny, like I actually managed to do this boss like out of the showcase many times without dying, but it looks like I actually ended up getting like some pretty insane mods. I guess it's the fact that he has AoE as well as his extra and crit multi, so we just got like absolutely slapped by a massive crit there. One cosmic fragment? Really? Just one? Alright. And yeah, I'll be kind of like improving this build over the next week. So if you want to check me out on Twitch, or also I'm streaming on YouTube as well, you guys can do that. And I hope this video has sort of maybe inspired some of you guys that I've been looking for maybe a tanky build to use with your Mage Blood. I think this is a really good one. So at this point in time, I have actually spent 780 divines on this build. I have self-crafted the gloves, the boots, and the helmet. And what the f. So yeah, as I previously mentioned, this build is actually extremely expensive. It's I invested about 780 divines into it at this point, all included Mage Blood as well, flasks, and gems and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for something, like if you have a couple mirrors lying around, I know there's very few you guys that are that rich, but for you guys that are really rich, I mean, look into this build. This is an absolute banger of a build, and I really recommend it. So maybe I will be making a more in-depth kind of guide slash video and going through how to craft all of that kind of stuff. But for now, if you guys have any questions, you can come by the live stream on YouTube as well as on Twitch. Ask those questions. I do have the crafting layouts for Necropolis as well if you guys need those. So just hit me up, and yeah, hopefully I've inspired at least a few of you guys to look into this build, because it is an absolute banger and I've been having a good time with it. And yeah, peace out everybody. Have a good one.